Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Amir Rashidi, and this is Pastor R. Dallas Green, and this is another episode of That Settles the Issue. And you're probably wondering, they look like they're wearing the same clothes as last time. So we made sure we put on the same exact clothes and sat in the same exact room. We just kidding. It's the same day, and we just had more to talk about. So we decided we just push record and go again. So if we are to continue our last conversation, what is the issue?
Well, the issue now, I think, is feeling the burden for Iran and the humanity of the people, because they've suffered so much in the last few decades. And I think most of us as Americans are oblivious to that. So, Dr. Amir, walk us into what you experienced growing up there.
Oh my gosh. You know, I remember that they would say, if soldiers come to take you, try not to go or hide, because they were taking children to fight in the war. Because they were running out of soldiers. And they would, so most of this happened in villages. I lived in more of an affluent place where this didn't happen, so I really didn't see it. In fact, we lived up north near the Caspian Sea, and it was more of a vacation area. Beautiful recreational facilities, nice big hotels with pools and, you know, scenery. It was on the side of the mountains, and the beach was right there. I mean, it was amazing. But what happened was, there was a park across the street from our house. They turned the park into a prisoners of war camp. It was a POW camp. And so they put brick wall around the whole park. This was a big park. My family and I used to go do our after dinner walks through the park every evening. But, you know, now it's not a vacation area anymore. And there was barbed wire on top, and the prisoners of war were kept there. And every once in a while, maybe every 3, 4, 5 weeks, one of them would escape, jump the wall, and run out, and there would be shooting through the streets. And I remember playing soccer with my friends outside in the street and hearing gunfire and having to go find the wall to hide behind or run back inside the house. I didn't know anyone who got shot, but we did get one bullet that went through the second floor of our house. But the scariest part was, so just think, I'm a little kid who's just been playing outside, and now I'm hiding inside. And we had a gate. We had a big yard in front. It was like an orchard of orange trees. And then we had a gate. And we had a wall also, but the gate was solid. You couldn't see through it. They would ring the doorbell. They would ring inside the house. We had this little telephone we'd pick up and say, you know, who is it? And they typically wouldn't answer. They just kept ringing. And so you're sitting there going, I wonder if whoever's ringing is the Iraqi soldier that just escaped and wants to hide in our house, or if it's the soldiers chasing him and they want to come search our house. But if you don't open the door and it's your own soldiers, they're going to think you're hiding someone, and they're going to break in and arrest you. But if it's the Iraqi soldier, your life's in danger. What do? Do you open the door? Do you not open it? So we always open the door. So we'd buzz them in, they would pour in, the soldiers, they would search our house, they'd go search the roof, and they would leave. And that was a regular occurrence there because of the war. And I didn't live in the capital where there was a lot of bombing, but there were times where it would be bombing every night. So an air raid siren would go off, and everybody had to go hide in bomb shelters or hide in a basement somewhere, and you could hear the roar of the plane, and you'd hear the whistle of the bomb. And this whistle would get louder and louder as the bomb's getting closer, but because it's so high-pitched, you can't tell where it is. It could be right over your head, or it could be a block away, and you don't know until you hear the explosion. And all of a sudden realize, oh my gosh, someone just died, but it wasn't us. But tomorrow night it might be us. And then a lot of bombs would get dropped on civilians. And so a lot of lives were lost. But we were living good, enjoyable lives. I mean, we had a villa on the sea, and we had our house in the city, and this villa on the ocean, by the beach. And in the summers we'd go there, and all our friends, like if you had lived there with us, we'd invite you out for a week, and you'd come with your family, you'd spend a week with us, and all we would do was just like eat really good food and go to the beach and hang out, and then in the evenings me and the kids would fly kites in our backyard, which was this big field, and we would just have fun, just enjoy, read, tell jokes, play. But when the revolution changed, the law said you can't own two homes
Hmm.
because there are people who are homeless.
Mhm.
So they poured into that house, to that villa one time. They beat my dad. He was bleeding from the head. They beat him. They dragged him out of there like some criminal because he owned two houses, because he owned a villa and a house.
Mhm.
They pulled him there. They put him in jail, and they kicked us out. They confiscated that villa. And I have so many great childhood memories there, but we lost the house because we weren't allowed to have two homes.
So what was the price of speaking out against the government? What would happen to your father if, when he was beaten, he had sort of protested and,
Yeah.
made it known to the public what happened?
Well, and this isn't public, but I believe people would just disappear.
Mm.
You know, they would just be taken away somewhere, and I don't know if they were killed or put in prison. There were instances where someone was gone for 10 years and all of a sudden reappeared. They finally released them from prison. Nobody knew that he was in prison. They would just let him out. So we were always really, really careful to make sure we don't say. I mean, can you imagine if you have a 6-year-old at home or a 7-year-old at home who's going to first grade, you have to train your 7-year-old. Please, 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 please don't say anything bad about the government.
Yeah.
How scary is that to say, what if he says 7-year-olds? I mean, my sons are now 3, 5, and 8, and sorry, 3, 5, and 9, and I can't imagine fearing that they're going to say something that's going to get misunderstood by some administrator in school, and then they're going to show up at our house and arrest everybody because there's no freedom of speech, even though it may not have even been true.
So your dad had the two places he was beaten. He couldn't say a word because the government had total control, and they would just take people away in the dead of night to prison or wherever to silence them. It must have felt to you as if you were a prisoner to their regime.
Yeah, and again, being a child, you really don't realize the gravity of it. I think if I had been an adult at the time, it would have been much more uncomfortable and painful. I can't imagine now, being in my 40s and raising children and a family, what it would be like if all of a sudden our world turned upside down like that, where I had to worry about all these other things of who's going to say what, and don't say this, and don't dress a certain way. I mean, you wouldn't be allowed to wear short sleeve shirts or shorts, in the summer. Women had to cover their hair, and if they had a little bit of makeup on, they might get arrested or fined. I can't imagine. As a child, I don't think it was that bad because I just still lived my life. I still played with my friends and went to school and everything else. But now looking back, I go, wow, my parents must have had a really tough time.
And God has the power to deliver Iran from its slavery and its bondage. And right now it's in bondage to a very evil government. And the people don't have those freedoms. I think God created us to be free.
Right.
And now they feel oppression. And someday there'll be maybe an internal revolution, but there's a price to revolution too, right?
Well, yeah, I think one of the reasons there isn't a revolution right now is because a lot of people like myself were alive during that first revolution. Mm-hmm. We remember what everybody went through. We remember the massacres and the killing and the fighting and the destruction, and nobody wants to go through that again. So they'll say, I'll suffer this so I don't have to suffer that. And that's why there isn't another uprising. I think, and the silencers are much more powerful nowadays. Where back in the day when there was the revolution, the government agents, the police, they weren't allowed to fire on the people. So they used tear gas and batons to put down the revolts, and it failed because there's a story of, and I don't remember his name, but there was this young, really, really young kid who was a soldier, 18 years old. In Iran, you served in the military. Every 18-year-old male serves in the military. But apparently he had the key to the stores that had guns, and he gave the key to one of the revolutionaries, and they barged in and got a bunch of guns, and they had, they were able to shoot against the police, and that was one of the turning points in that revolution. Something like that's never going to happen this time around. They will be shot and destroyed before they have an opportunity to fight back. And so for those reasons, I think we've got a much more uphill battle. There is a lot of there are a lot of devout people in Iran who think that they know God and they love God, and they believe in God. There's a lot of prayer going up to God, and prayer is an amazing tool. I think we can fight with prayer, and we should be, and you should be in prayer for them, not just Iran, but any country that needs that freedom.
Well, hearing your story, Dr. Ray, I feel this burden for the people of Iran, for them to find freedom. And I know that's their freedom in Christ.
There is. They force people in Iran to be Muslims, but God said, choose me.
Yeah.
Choose me. I give you a choice. Choose me. But if you do, you'll never be sorry.
Yeah.